Good morning, I'm Rodrigo, and this is our work, Sapive, Simple AVX to PIM Vectorizer. Our motivation. In this figure, we have the CPU and memory improvement trends from the last 16 years. In this period, the memory bandwidth increased by around 16 times, while the CPU single-core speeds improved by 10 times. On the other hand, the memory latency only improved by less than 2 times. And this growing disparity between the CPU speeds and the memory latency is a problem known as memory wall. An alternative to mitigate this problem is including processing units closer to the memory, what is known as processing memory. The emergence of the 3D memories fostered PIN alternatives capable of being implemented in the logical layers of these 3D memories. A 3D memory consists of a logic layer under many DRAM layers. One of the PIN alternatives capable of being implemented in this logical layer is VIMA, the vector memory architecture. VIMA extends the system's ISA by including vector instructions capable of being executed inside the 3D memory logical layer. And this is done by including some functional units, a data cache memory, and an instruction sequencer inside this 3D memory layer. However, VIMA does not present a register bank. And because of this, each VIMA instruction needs to read its operands and store its results directly into memory addresses. And because of this, they can be classified into one of three types: a memory copy, an operation over vector, or an operation between vectors. These VIMA instructions can be inserted in a program in several ways. The first is by using intrinsic functions, but they can also be included by using adapted libraries, a compiler conversion, or a runtime conversion. However, as far as we know, there were no dynamic conversion mechanisms for vector PIN instructions. So this leads us to our proposal. And we propose Sapive, the simple AVX to PIN vectorizer. Sapive is a hardware binary translation mechanism capable of converting CPU vector instructions into VIMA vector instructions that are capable of processing a bigger amount of data. The Sapive purpose is to reduce the bottleneck between CPU and memory, and by doing this, reduce the application's execution time. So, our proposed mechanism. The idea behind Sapive is identify convertible CPU instructions and replace them with a corresponding VIMA instruction. Here we have a vector sum algorithm. This is the algorithm execution inside the CPU. With Sapive, these instructions executed by the CPU would be replaced with a vector VIMA instruction. In order to do this, Sapive follows some steps. The first of them is the identification, where Sapive searches for convertible patterns. This is done by evaluating each micro-op renamed and searching for one of the VIMA instruction patterns. This pattern should be found inside and loop in order to convert all the loop iterations into VIMA instructions. The second step is the analysis, where these pattern memory access addresses are evaluated. This evaluation is made in order to discover if the memory accesses are contiguous. So the first two loop iterations are evaluated, and if the memory addresses are contiguous, we go to the third step. The third step, validation, converts the CPU instructions into a VIMA instruction. And this is done by locking all the pattern instructions inside ROB without executing. While they are locked, they do calculate their memory addresses accesses, and a corresponding Vim instruction is executed. The last step is a confirmation or an invalidation. A confirmation permanently saves the conversion results and replaces the pattern CPU instructions. However, a confirmation only happens if the pattern has enough iterations for the conversion, and this number of enough iterations depends of the AVX converted size and the Vim instruction size used. Also, all the memory accesses from the pattern must remain contiguous in all these required iterations. If something goes wrong, there is an invalidation that permanently discards our conversion results and executes the ROB locked instructions. Over this base mechanism, we implemented some optimizations that are the consecutive conversions and the speculation aggressivity. The first optimization consists of, after the first loop conversion, all the following loop iterations are contiguously converted into new Vim instructions. And this conversion is made without having to execute all the identification and analysis steps. The second optimization is the speculation aggressivity. That consists of, if a loop has consecutive conversions, our mechanism tries to advance future conversions, and the aggressivity corresponds to the number of conversions that are advanced. This improves the parallelism in accessing in-memory data, because we have more Vim instructions executing at the same time. However, this requires more ROB space in order to store these advanced conversions. So our methodology: we implemented our experiments over ARCs, a simulator with cycle precision and with parameters inspired by Intel Skylake. Our evaluations were made over 2 execution traces from synthetic programs, a vector sum and a memory copy, that were compiled into AVX 256 and AVX 512. All these versions were converted into 3 Vim instruction sizes in our experiments, from Vima 256 bytes and to Vima 1024 bytes. Now our results. The first result shows the conversion speedup obtained by Sapive over the memory copy algorithm compiled with AVX 256 instructions and converted into Vima 256 bytes instructions. In the vertical axis, we have the Sapive speedup over the baseline, that is the memory copy usual CPU execution. Results over the 1 represent performance gains, while those below 1 represent performance losses. Horizontally, we have loops with a different number of iterations that grows to the right. And each color represents a different aggressivity used by Sapive. So, in this experiment, we could reach a speedup of 1.8. If we increase the AVX to AVX 512, we could reach even greater gains, reaching 3 times gains. On the other hand, if we increased the size of the data operated by each Vim instruction, less aggressiveness was required to achieve the same is required to achieve the same gains, and that happens because each Vim instruction already works as a greater aggressivity from Sapive. The second program, the vector sum, compiled with AVX 256 and converted into Vima 256 bytes. The vector sum algorithm presents more memory accesses in each of its iterations. So Sapive could reach performance gains even being less aggressive in this program. When we increased the AVX size, something similar to the memory copy happened. That is, we could reach greater performance gains, almost 4.5 times. After that, we compared our mechanism with manually implemented Vima intrinsics, and we found that in most cases, SAP achieved less than 50% of the speedup that could be achieved with intrinsics. So, Sapive was still unable to assess the full Vima potential, and this is mainly because our conversion checks are limited by our ROB size that prevents parallel conversions and makes the CPU verifications a bottleneck. So we evaluated a system considering buffers 4 times larger, simulating a future system. And in this new system, more verifications could be done in parallel, increasing our gains and reaching almost the same gains from intrinsics in some cases. That was a speed up of 10 times. So our conclusions: memory to CPU data transfer is a growing problem, but PIN devices as Vima can attenuate this problem. Our proposal was a hardware binary translation mechanism called Sapive that was capable of achieve 5 times better execution time over an AVX 512 implementation, and could be able to achieve the same speedup potential of Vima intrinsics, considering a future system with buffers 4 times larger. This work was supported by CAPS and Serra Pilheira Institute, and that's it. Thank you. Some question?